This is a hot lot. Bonus time.
Let's go.
Stop it. Not too much.
With that much?
But not too much.
Cool.
I saw, I was like, that is pretty. I love this.
Well, this is the cool badge because if that's a 427, that's like a pretty nice engine in there. Got a transmission, 9-inch. And I do not know what type of engine that is. I think that is a FE though. It looks fully dressed. And unlike the 56, not a lot of these things bushings are completely burnt, so that is a good sign.
Whoa, I was worried.
Okay. You can out.
Okay, I'm get out. What is up, guys? It is Niles, and this is my brand new to me 1964 Galaxie 500. So just had this delivered at the Walmart and then towed to my place. And I just want to do a quick walk around because there was some things that I noticed when this was getting dropped off. So I just want to get a closer look at them. Now we did have to cover all the windows because they were all busted out because of the fire. If you guys know, I also have a 56 Chevy that was also on fire, but the auction place actually put plastic over the busted windows, which was really nice. This one, no, so we just threw this tarp on top. And one thing I do want to check is the VIN, because here on the fender, it says 427, which is kind of cool, but I don't think this is a 427 car because, well, a couple reasons. And this door does not latch right here, so you have to put a ratchet strap in between. So I'm going to do that, look at the VIN real quick. Let's see what we got. And maybe I can also free up this latch too, just putting some oil on it. Let's look at the VIN decoder. Yep, 2-door fastback. And the X engine, which is a 352, but a 4-barrel, which is kind of cool. Medium beige metallic. Yeah, that tracks. On the front of this car, there's little portions right here and here where you can kind of see the original color, and it is that metallic, which is really neat. And then someone just did repaint this black, but you can tell it's been a while because this paint is pretty oxidized. The non-burn parts at least. Wish it was the R, but that's fine. Now the main thing that I do want to see is what kind of engine is in here. So when I was underneath the transporter, I could see that there was engine here, transmission. Looked pretty clean actually, no holes in the floor, which is really nice. I just want to find out what engine this is. And whoa, okay, didn't realize there's the cable release right there, but that makes it easy. Oh shit, why are you so heavy? Okay, but that, fellas, whoa, that is very cool. So this engine did catch fire a little bit, but this is an FE engine, Ford Edsel, and so like sort of sometimes called a big block Ford, but this thing had tri-carbs, which is very cool. And one thing I'm just noticing is there's the battery, or at least what remained of the old battery. That is crazy. So this engine did catch fire, but that is cool that is a tri-power. Very cool. Oh my goodness, I don't think anyone ever popped the hood on this. And I mean, maybe they didn't know how to. Y'all need to see this. This is really cool to look inside of here. So The tri-power completely melted. You can see just gobs of that. I don't know if that's one of the later model, like a remanufactured tri-power. So some of those later ones, the bodies aren't made from pot metal. They're actually made from aluminum, which has a higher melting temp than pot metal. So those might be original ones because they're completely melted. But that would be so cool to hang on the wall. But just looking at this car, there's some really nice parts, like this master cylinder. Someone wrapped the exhaust manifolds, which is really nice. And this, I can sort of tell that this is like an older, like maybe hot rod that someone made. Because if you look at the fan, it is an electric fan, but it is an older style one. So I haven't actually seen that style in quite a while. They don't sell those anymore. But yeah, not too bad. I don't know where the fire started, if it started in the interior or started here, but everything is pretty burnt. I'm gonna see if this engine turns over. I really, really hope this engine turns over because it would save me so much time. Oh, nope. Hopefully the fire didn't get that hot because that bolt just spun. So, I don't think so though, because the fan is not burnt at all. And the lower radiator hose is not. Oh, yep. Yep, she's turning over. Yep. Yes. She is turning over, so this will hopefully be running up and running soon. So that just saved me a ton of work, not having to unseize this. That is amazing. So I'll get a list of parts ordered and get this guy started. So it has been a couple days since I last touched the 64, but pretty much all the parts that I need to get this engine running are here except for the distributor. So we're gonna try to get as much done as possible today. Now this car does have that 427 badge on here, but this is actually not a 427 engine. And the way you can tell is the 427 engines, they had screw-in freeze plugs. Well, this one has the press-in ones. And also they're cross-bolted, and this one is not cross-bolted. So, yep, not a 427 block, but that does not mean that this has been bored and stroked to 427 cubic inches. But I honestly think this is probably a 352 that they just put the tri-power intake on. And what we're going to be doing today is pulling off the intake and getting rid of all this burnt stuff. Also pulling off the accessory drive because we have a completely brand new one from CVF. And to make everything super easy, we're also going to take out the radiator and all the AC stuff. And I'm just going to clean off all this stuff. Okay. Oh, Jesus. Okay. Okay. Now, before I start taking off the valve covers, I'm actually going to hit this again with the leaf blower to blow off any of that extra stuff. And one thing I just noticed was this. This right here is a fuel bowl. And it looks like it just fell out, melted out of one of the carburetors. That is very, very cool. Moment of truth. Ooh. Actually looking pretty decent in there. So the intake is aluminum. Kind of knew that, but it's just good to confirm that. Looks very nice in there. Very, very nice. One of the small concerns was that, you know, it got too hot and maybe the valve springs like lost. The valve springs just aren't as good. but these actually look decent. Now we are gonna have to take all this off when we swap out the intake, which sucks, but it shouldn't be that bad. Actually, I don't know. Maybe the valve springs did lose some stuff because they're all sitting at the same level now, which is bad. But very stock stuff, no adjustable rockers. So interesting. Maybe the lifters just aren't pumped up. Okay, there. Now, before I pull out the valve train, one thing I want to check is the oil pump, just to see if we can build any pressure. Okay, never taken apart one of these before, but I'm assuming just go slowly and break them slowly off. So we'll try that. Oh God. Okay, loose. That's the other side. All right, valve train is out and looking pretty good. And I just want to take a sec and just look at this fan. This is like, I have not seen this style of fan in years. Very interesting though. I wonder if it still works. It probably does still work. I'm gonna put power to it in a little bit. But next up is taking the intake off. And I am going to be so careful with this because there is still just a ton of stuff on here. But this thing will look actually really cool once it's off with the melted carburetors and everything. I'm going to stuff a rag in there just in case. But the valve train actually looks pretty good too. Beautiful. Let's get this off. And one thing you guys may be wondering is why haven't I turned the engine over yet? And the reason why is because you see how all these carburetors are melted. You know, I just couldn't, you know, take the carburetor off and see if anything had fallen down. So I do not want to spin the engine over until the intake's off, because just on the off chance that something might have fallen down one of the runners. So this way, when I take the intake off, at least I can look in there and see if there's any, you know, melted pot metal or anything in there. So that's why I didn't really turn it over. I didn't want to damage any of the valves. And I would love to use a tri-power setup, but it's just way easier to go to a single, you know, single 4-barrel. And way cheaper too, by the way. Oh! Okay. Yes. Oh God, you're so heavy. Yep. Okay. And I was right. Some lifters did pop out, but at least it's pretty obvious which one goes where. Here is our old intake, and that just looks so cool. I think it looks super cool, the melted stuff on it. I'm gonna clean this up in a little bit, but while my hands are clean, I'm gonna install this intake. So this is the brand new one from Edelbrock. This is the Performer RPM for the FE blocks, and this is a pretty nice looking unit. I think Edelbrock is one of the few manufacturers that make an intake still for the FE, which is really nice. So it comes with this, but the gasket and the hardware you have to purchase separately. So I am going to do a quick test fit with this just to determine how much RTV I got to put on the China walls. And even though this thing is fully aluminum, it is still fucking heavy. Okay, that wasn't so bad. Like, oh boy. A little bit of RTV around all the water passages. This will hold it in place. And also, this will help the water jacket seal at least. Let's see. Train back in. Ah. Womp, 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 womp. Right, and that is as far as I'm taking it today. I'm gonna wait for that distributor. It's supposed to come next week, so that'll go on, and then we can actually try to fire this. And then we'll see also if the fuel pump works. But yeah, I'm excited for that distributor to come. In the meantime, I might actually start on the brakes and actually cleaning up some of this stuff. Like these horns can go, like that's not gonna work. A lot of this wiring can go too. That ground strap, this ground strap here, that'll probably still work. This positive side will still work. We just gotta replace the solenoid right there. And maybe the starter would work. So last time we put the intake on, valve covers, new carburetor, did a little bit of work, just plumbed this line right here, and also put a fitting on the back for the brake booster once we get that. I also did add the hood springs, but those are gonna have to come off because they are too strong. And actually, I bent this piece of metal right here, trying to close it, and bent the hood a little bit right there. So those are gonna have to come off. On the inside, I did put the seat in. So this is a seat from a Dodge Charger. I just really like the Dodge Charger seats. They're super comfortable. It was a little bit of a work to get it in, but just made this adapter in the back. The main thing, if you want to put seats in, like modern seats in an old car, the main thing is making sure it's centered on the steering wheel. So that's why it took a little bit of work, but wasn't too bad. Shifter is in too. That is a Outlaw shifter from TCI and still needs to get put in, or still needs to be routed, but it is mounted pretty securely. And this is painted in POR 15's red oxide. I actually really like this color. It does look a little bit pink, but I actually really like it. So I'm gonna put the cable in probably today, just so when we start this. But today, the distributor should be coming and we should be able to start this car. It should be coming here around 4 o'clock, so we've got an hour to get some work done. And the first thing we're gonna do is actually take out this old battery and get the starter wired. Okay, so put on gloves for this because I do not want to get dirty. Okay. Ugh. Is disgusting. Ugh. New Optima battery going in. Wow, there's a ton of space around this guy. That's okay. All right, so we're putting in a new solenoid, and then we're probably going to reuse the same lines. So I do have a couple replacement starters just in case that one doesn't work. Those ones, the solenoid's actually on the starter, but I think we'll wire it so the solenoid's still here, just because this way we can tap off the battery and it's a lot, I think it looks a lot better. Okay, brand new battery cable, just like that. So earlier I couldn't get it to start with the existing wire, so I just made another one. And also looking at it, they had installed a newer style starter where the solenoids on the actual starter, they had actually ran the wire back up to here. What I'm gonna do is do this. So this goes onto the battery positive and this goes to the solenoid, so this will just trigger it. New battery line made. Let's see if this thing's got some juice in it. Ow! Ow! Oh, cool, we're still pumping fuel too. That fuel smells strong. Okay, so fuel pump still works too. I'll actually run a line and put a filter in line. So we finally got the distributor. This one's really cool. It's got the clear distributor cap so you can see the sparks in it. But one of the issues is it is missing a gasket. So that's not gonna prevent us from running it. We might just have a little bit of oil leak, which is fine. I did order a gasket, so we should be fine. Oh, right. All right, for fuel system, because when we were starting it last time, it actually did pull fuel from the tank. So I just tied off of here, put a filter, and we're gonna run through the original fuel pump. Hopefully it pumps fuel. All right, so just tried priming the fuel pump. I don't think it's gonna work, so we're just gonna turn on, spray some carb cleaner down the intake. Ooh. All right, because it wasn't priming itself, I'm actually gonna go back and give it a little jerry can. Looks like we're leaking a little bit of transmission fluid. So maybe it just needs more fuel. God, and we're really leaking. Looks like there's some water contamination inside the transmission fluid. Or maybe it's just really aerated. I think it is contamination though, but we'll see. So this did run for a second. Let me fix that. A bit more like that. Let's see. Very nice. Let's get a shot of how this guy sounds. All right, so now that we established that this thing will run, I'm gonna make it run a little bit longer and put back the cooling system. Now, we aren't gonna be using the original stuff that I pulled off. We have a complete kit from CVF. So brand new water pump, and this is the alternator bracket and alternator. Now, I do also have the power steering mount and the AC mount, but we're not gonna put that on yet. We're just gonna focus on cooling. And then once that is in, we're gonna put in the radiator, which is from Champion Radiators, which is very nice. And also what I'm gonna try to do today is clear out just all the stuff that was in the transmission, like all that water that was in there. Hopefully I can pump it all out through the pressure line and then just feed new fluid in through the drain or through the dipstick. So hopefully we can, get this transmission working good. Throw on this lower pulley. Now the water pump pulley. The pulley had to come off. Okay, a little annoying, but just the battery tray's too wide, so we're gonna have to pull it out. Which isn't really a huge deal, because if you look at this battery in here, it still's got a ton of room on either side of it. So honestly, I think just the older battery is way too big. So for cooling system, I have this brand new radiator from Champion, and it came with a shroud and small fan and also this surge tank. So for the FE engines, you need the surge tank because it's the highest point on the engine. But this radiator is absolutely beautiful. The TIG welds on it are amazing. And I've ordered quite a few radiators, and this is the first one that I've received where none of the fins are bent. So their quality control is really, really good. These TIG welds are absolutely nice. So I was gonna mount this fan to the shroud and then to the shroud to the radiator, but for now I'm gonna hold off on that. I'm glad I saved the old radiator and thermostat housing though. So I'll show you where this hits. Currently just hits against the distributor cap, which sucks. I do have a different distributor coming, a small cap one, and that'll be fine. So yeah, look at that, literally just hitting right there and not allowing to sit all the way on. So it really sucks, but I'm glad I still have that guy right there. No fan though, but we'll be able to let it run a little bit longer. And I still have the housing, which is really nice. So let me get that old stuff back in. All right, to test this, we're just gonna run some water through it. And hopefully it doesn't leak. I did just drop the fan on it, so we'll see. Dang, that's a fuck ton of rust in there. Okay, so no leaks. That's pretty good. Let's hose this guy off at least. Now, for a fan, I do have this, I think this is 12-inch, maybe? Way too small for this, but it'll let us run a little bit longer. And some of these holes look like they'll line up already. Maybe we should put this in the car first and see how much space we have. Or just stick it on. Nah, well, I'll check. I'll check. Old me would have just stuck it on. See how good these fans are. Okay, old thermostat going back on. Trick is we just gotta lean the radiator forward and this hose right here will work. Oh God. This is just a spare hose, the spare upper hose that I have. The other one that I have is made for the actually surge tank. So that's why it won't work on this one. I love it. The fan is cooling it. A slight oil leak, nothing crazy, just from the trans fluid. All right, so engine is running like an absolute top now, but I need to purge the transmission. So what I'm doing is just trying to fill it up with as much fluid as I can. I have the other end emptying into a bucket, and once it runs clear, hopefully we can just cap it and then it'll be water free. There's so much. Like, holy smokes, like, look at this. Both of those are just full of pink. So I'm gonna see if I can get it to run clear. A ton of ATF later, it's a little bit more red. So this was the last one that I poured. You can see a little bit of contamination in there, but still way more red than what originally came out of there. And this is after 6 gallons of ATF. So I used all of that one, those two, and then that one, and then it was clear, so I poured it till it reached the dipstick, which was the rest of that can right there. And now the hose is just looped. And when it was idling, it reached the bottom of the dipstick where it said it should be, so hopefully we should be good. Now last night, I also did mock up the shifter, so I want to see if this thing goes into gear now. So it's actually kind of funny, you can hear the speedometer cable clicking. Yeah, I don't think I showed you guys the cable I made. You hear that? That's the old Speedo spinning in there. Neutral. So car is running and driving, which is amazing. The next thing I have to do is work on the brakes. So I had already removed the master cylinder and booster. Actually ended up breaking one bolt off, which sucks. But there was an issue with the pedal, and that being is this thing is just so loose in here. I don't think you guys can see that, but it's just so loose in here, and that's because there's a couple rubber bushings that are in the pedal and also the housing, and they melted out, so that's why there's so much play in here. So I'm going to be dropping the whole assembly and grabbing one from the donor car. So that's why the steering column is also out. But we're having a little bit of issues, so I'm not sure if you have to pull the whole dash out to get to the assembly. I really hope you don't have to. There's only 2 bolts that are holding it on, which are this one and this one. This one is just spinning, so I think something behind it broke. And this one I just can't get a good grip on, so I'm gonna have to grind that out. But to get to those, we're gonna have to take this cowl panel off. So I'm gonna be doing that. So all the bolts are undone. These upper 2 ones were really hard to get to, but I really don't think there's anything else holding it in. Let's just try to use the pry bar on here. If we pull the dash to get this out, that means we just have to do it on the other one, which I really don't want to do. So I'd rather replace the bushings first. All right, so whilst we wait for those brake parts and the steering column, we can fix the cooling system. So this is the old radiator that was in here and old thermostat housing. But now that we have the small cap distributor in, we can install the surge tank and the Champion radiator and fan. So it'll be a lot cleaner of a setup, just because this current radiator is just not fitting in there perfectly with that hose. I could have just got a longer hose, but yeah. Also, this fan is way undersized. So that was just water in there. What I've been doing is filling this with water and just cycling the engine, just so we can clean out any debris that's in there. This is the last flush. Whoa. All right, so this is what I mean by the fire wasn't that bad. I mean, it was pretty bad that it burned the entire car, but look at this. The rubber mounts where the radiator sits are fine. Like, maybe they got a little bit hot, but fine, no damage to them. So I'm gonna get the new radiator set up. All right, so now the surge tank can go on. One thing to note though is I did have to reclock the distributor just because this hold down was hitting the side of the box. Not a huge issue, just had to reorient the plugs, but engine fire right up after that. It looks way more like a FE engine now with that tank right there. A modern one at least. That looks so cool. Now time to get the radiator ready. All right, so radiator and fan shroud that we're using is from Champion Cooling. And we have this beautiful shroud and spall fan. And to attach it to the shroud, I was gonna use some self-tappers just because they're convenient and it's easy to loosen. If you want to change out the fan, it's easy to loosen these and take them out and just swap out the fan without having to take the shroud off. But, you know, I decided to use some riv nuts, so we're gonna use some riv nuts instead. All right, we're just gonna use some self-tappers to hold the shroud on. Not a huge issue as long as we don't go into the actual water tank. Okay, Ow. Dang, that looks good in there. Now I really don't have a hold down for this guy, so I'm just gonna use this for now, which should be fine. This will keep it super secure. Oh yeah. Okay, so hopefully we have the right parts to finish the brakes. This is from Scott Drake. This is actually for a Mustang, but surprisingly, this rod right here is the same dimensions as that, and this looks like it would fit within there. So I would just have to clean this up or use this one. I don't really see an end on this one, so we might have to reuse this one. But as long as these guys fit, I think we should be good. We couldn't take it off the old one, being because they were actually pressed in. So these ones, they have a little bit of a collar on the end, and then they use a snap ring to hold them in. So I'm gonna cut this open and see if these guys fit. Then if they fit, I'm just gonna clean everything up and start greasing it and reinstall it. So those bushings fit, which is really cool. I'm actually gonna reuse this old rod. So I put some WD-40 on it, and I'm just gonna sand it so that most of the rust is off, so it'll fit in there smoothly. I'm gonna do the same for the inside of the pedal. Pedal is way more firm. One thing I did have to do was the bushings for the pedal actually wouldn't fit, so probably just too much rust buildup in there, so I just took them out. If I had them in, there'd be less movement, but it just wouldn't fit at the time, so we'll deal with that later. We have a brake booster and master cylinder from Summit Racing. They do sell them as a set, but I did get them separately just because we're running discs. The one that they sell together, it's, I think, well, no, I got that one separately because I want to run, we have drums, but the one that they sell together, it's like disc drums. I'm not sure, but I'm just going to figure out how this mounts in. This is a little bit different than the OEM setup. All right, so last night I finished up, put the master on. It was a little bit confusing because there is some linkages that you have to kind of mess around with on the back. I did end up chopping a little bit off the threads off the booster, but was able to get it to work. Got the master installed, got the master bled, and then was able to put this front line on, but this line right here was actually too short, which isn't that big of a deal because it actually tees down here where the brake light switches, so we can actually just make that little line. But for now, I'm just gonna bleed the front brakes, and so we can just do a smoky burnout because you only need front brakes really. We don't want to wear out the back ones. So brakes are done-ish. I'm gonna jack up the front and bleed the wheel cylinders. I did decide to do the right thing and remade this line. So there you can see the old one. Just see how much shorter it is than this one. So this one replaces that. I guess safety, but for now I'm just gonna bleed the front. We bled these guys all right. I'm just testing to see if the front brakes will hold it. I am gonna start this bad boy. Wow, that started out way too easy. Ooh, seat's hot. Okay, the brakes are holding. wants to run. All right, let's. All right, guys, so this car is going on the road for the first time today. Let me show you what I've done off camera. And helping me today is actually one of my really good friends, Sean. Him and I were roommates in the Marine Corps, which is really cool. So we cleared a path and we're ready to drive out. So one thing we installed was these gauges. These are from Summit Racing, and these are actually for their, God, what is it? Their crate, for their engine run stands. So we have a tack, water, oil, and voltage. It doesn't have a mile per, like a speed gauge, but that's totally fine for what we're doing. Also in here, we installed this switch so we can run this off of a key. So this way I don't have to start the car from the engine bay. And we also put the steering column in. This is from I Did It Steering, and I tried to use the original steering column, but I actually had to use this one for my S10, which is the spare one that I had, just because of the horn, the way the horn button is set up. And it is the GM style steering column, but very cool because put the keys in and you literally see all the gauges light up and they all work super well. So we're gonna get this started up and driven out of here. I think we're gonna get some gas and shoot some rollers. Yeah, dude, there's my burnt pile of all my stuff. Dude, see how fast that starts? First time rolling by itself. Dude, crazy. This is the first time this thing's been on the road in I don't know how long. Okay, let me test the brakes. Brakes are okay. Hey, get in here, boy. Our quick editor note. So totally got caught up in the moment. I hadn't seen Sean in forever and we totally forgot to shoot rollers. Also, when we were driving around the neighborhood, as soon as we left our street, like saw a cop car and was instantly like pretty scared. So we just turned it around, went back home. We just did some burnouts in front of the house instead, and that was super cool. So a couple weeks later, ended up calling my buddy Joel, and we shot some content and some rollers, and that's this content right now. All right, let's see. Oh yeah, almost clear, and we're clear. Yeah. Okay. We're good. Literally, as soon as I hit that bump over there, like chunks of the roof like fell, and then it was just blown into my eyeball. So I'm gonna get some glasses real quick. Silly kid. Oh, hey. Yeah, so anyways, car runs great. We're gonna get some gas actually, because there's probably only about 2 gallons in here. So we're gonna head to the Walmart where I picked this car up, because there's a gas station right there. And I think we're gonna shoot some B-roll there. Yeah, no lights, barely any brakes. Let's do some rollers. windy, but we're driving on the road. I don't know how fast we're going. So I made it here. Dude, it was brutal driving here. It was absolutely brutal. So many people were staring at me. Like, so much stuff just hit my face, dude.
Yeah, you stand out going down the road.
Dude,
Kinda in a good way, but not in a good way.
there was that huge line of cars that came out. I was like, fuck. All right, we're just gonna put 5 gallons. That should be enough to hoon around on. I was so afraid. I saw one Explorer, dude, and I was like, is that a cop?
As long as
I couldn't even see you in my mirror, dude. I only have like the one mirror and it's like busted.
yeah, you don't even have a mirror.
I have the side mirror. Dude, that's weird. It only took 4 gallons? So my head's like, was it just sloshing or was there already like bad gas in there? Because I thought the tank was empty, but maybe not. Maybe it came with some gas. All right, so where I picked this car up was right over there in that back corner. So let's head there, take some beauty shots. I'll reminisce a little bit, and then let's get something to eat at Walmart.
Got a tow truck already waiting for us, eh?
I know, dude. Dude, it's crazy. So I think like 4 months ago I picked this up. A lot of the time it's just waiting for parts, honestly. But back to where I picked it up. So we are gonna be hitting stage 2 on this. So stage 2 is like a ton of metal work. Maybe pulling out the engine, because I do want to do some, replace like the firewall and stuff like that. Right now I am dealing with some paperwork issues. But other than that, like once that's solved, like hopefully we can get this guy back on the road and actually driving. Yeah, do all the metal work, put an actual wiring harness in, get the lights working, put gauges in it. I already have a spare dash for this. And then we're also going to clear coat this whole thing. So hopefully you guys like that stuff. Stick around. Right into that tree. Oh God. Okay. I think I'm done tearing up this lawn. I don't want my neighbors to complain. I know what that is though. That's from the, I don't have a overflow catch can.